"So do you also cry from the cold?" they asked the homeless girl to the billionaire. But it was grief for his daughter. Michael Thompson sat on the wooden bench in Liberty Square in Chicago, tears streaming down his face without a care for who might see him. The 62-year-old businessman, owner of one of the largest construction companies in the country, wept as he hadn't in years, lost in a pain money couldn't heal. That's when he felt a small, icy hand touch his arm. Raising his reddened eyes, he saw a little girl no older than 6, wearing tattered clothes and messy hair, looking at him with childlike curiosity. "Mister, do you also cry from the cold?" she asked in a sweet voice, tilting her head the way children do when they don't understand something. Michael was speechless. No one had approached him in months. Since Emily had passed, people around him seemed afraid to touch him, as if sadness were contagious. But this little girl, clearly vulnerable, had approached him with the natural ease only children possess. "It's not from the cold that I cry, little one," he replied, his voice choked. The girl sat beside him on the bench, swinging her legs that didn't reach the ground. "Then why are you crying?" she pressed. "My mum always said we only cry when something hurts really bad." Michael studied her more closely. Despite the dirt on her face and worn-out clothes, there was something special in her eyes, a light that reminded him of... "What's your name?" he asked, trying to change the subject. "Sarah," she answered, smiling. "And yours?" "Michael." He hesitated for a moment. "Where are your parents, Sarah?" The girl's smile faded slightly. "Daddy left before I was born. Mommy... She went to work in a faraway city and said she'd be back soon. But it's been a long time." Michael's heart clenched. This child was alone on the streets, waiting for someone who might never return. He knew all too well the feeling of waiting for someone who wouldn't come back. "How long have you been waiting?" he asked, genuinely concerned. Sarah counted on her tiny fingers. "So many days. I sleep over there." She pointed to a nook between 2 closed shops. "Mrs. Wilson from the bakery sometimes gives me old bread, and Mr. Johnson from the bar lets me drink from the tap." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us newcomers so much. Now continuing, Michael felt a lump in his throat. How could such a small child survive alone on the streets? And more importantly, why had no one helped her? "Don't you have any family? Grandparents? Uncles?" "Mommy always said it was just the 2 of us in the world." Sarah swung her legs harder. "But it's okay. I know how to take care of myself. I learned to collect cans and cardboard. Sometimes I sell some and buy cookies." The businessman looked around the square. It was an upscale part of town, full of offices and expensive shops. How had a child been living here so long without anyone stepping in? "Sarah, are you hungry?" Her eyes lit up. "A little, but it's okay. Tomorrow I'll collect more cans." Michael stood up, determined. "Come with me. Let's get something to eat." Sarah hesitated, eyeing him warily. "Mommy always said not to go with strangers." "Your mum was right. But we're just going to the bakery." He pointed to the shop across the square. "You know Mrs. Wilson, don't you?" The girl nodded and stood, walking beside him. Michael noticed she limped slightly on her right leg, but said nothing. At the bakery, Mrs. Wilson, a woman in her 50s with a flowered apron, smiled when she saw Sarah. "Hi, sweetheart. How are you today?" "Hi, Mrs. Wilson. This gentleman here wants to give me food," said Sarah, pointing at Michael. The baker eyed the well-dressed man suspiciously. "And who might you be?" "Michael Thompson. I was talking to Sarah in the square and noticed she could use a proper meal." Mrs. Wilson studied his face for a moment. There was something familiar about that name, but she couldn't quite place it. "You can choose whatever you'd like, Sarah," said Michael, gesturing to the bread and pastries in the display case. The little girl's eyes widened. She'd never had the chance to pick her own food before. "Can I have 2 sugar rolls?" she asked timidly. "You can have as many as you want." Sarah took only 2 rolls, wrapped one in a napkin, and tucked it into her pocket. "Why aren't you eating both now?" Michael asked. "This one's for later, when my belly hurts again." The businessman felt his eyes well up with tears once more. That child's maturity was heartbreaking. They returned to the bench in the square. Sarah ate her roll slowly, savoring every bite, while Michael watched in silence. There was something about her that moved him in a way he couldn't explain. "Michael, why were you crying?" Sarah asked after finishing her roll. He took a moment to answer. "I lost someone very important to me. My daughter." "Did she get lost?" "I can help you look. I know the whole city." The innocence of her question shattered Michael's heart. How could he explain to a 6-year-old that some losses are permanent? "No, Sarah. She's not coming back." The girl grew thoughtful for a few seconds. "Like my mommy." "Not exactly like your mommy. Your mother might still return." Sarah scooted closer on the bench and, with the spontaneity of children, placed her tiny hand over his. "Do you want me to stay here with you, so you won't be alone and crying?" Michael looked at this frail child, who had nothing in the world but the clothes on her back, offering to comfort him. Him, with millions in the bank, mansions, luxury cars, employees, yet feeling utterly empty inside. "You don't have to, sweetheart. You must have things to do." "I don't. Just waiting for Mommy to come back, but I can wait here with you." That afternoon, Michael spent more time talking to Sarah than he had with anyone in the past 3 months. She told him about her life on the streets, the people who helped her, her dreams of finding her mother and living in a real house. As the sun began to set, Michael stood up. "I have to go, Sarah. Will you come back tomorrow?" The simple question struck him. When was the last time someone asked if he'd return? When was the last time someone truly wanted his company? "If you'd like, I'll come back." "I'd like that. You're nice. And you don't treat me like I'm some animal like some people do." Michael felt anger rise in him. How could anyone treat a child like that? "Where will you sleep tonight?" "In my usual spot. Don't worry, I'm used to it." "Sarah, have you ever tried getting help? There are places where kids can stay safe while waiting for their parents." The girl shook her head firmly. "I can't leave here. What if Mommy comes back and I'm gone? She won't know where to find me." Michael understood her logic, painful as it was. He pulled a $50 bill from his wallet. "Here, for food tomorrow." Sarah stared at the money as if it were treasure. "This is too much. I can't take it." "Yes, you can. And if anyone tries to take it from you, hide it well, okay?" She nodded and tucked the money deep into her pocket next to the wrapped roll. "Thank you, Michael. You're the kindest person I've met since Mommy left." Those words echoed in Michael Thompson's mind the whole way home. As he drove his Cadillac through the illuminated streets of Chicago, he couldn't stop thinking about the girl sleeping out in the open, alone and vulnerable. When he arrived at his mansion in Lincoln Park, the house felt even emptier and quieter than before. Michael went up to Emily's room, which remained exactly as she had left it 3 months earlier. The dolls on the shelf, the children's books, the neatly made bed with the pink comforter she loved so much. He sat on the edge of the bed and picked up the photo of his daughter on the nightstand. Emily was 8 years old in the picture, taken 2 years before the accident. In it, the girl smiled radiantly, hugging her favorite stuffed bear. Looking at the photo, Michael remembered the conversation he'd had with Sarah. There was something in her eyes that reminded him of Emily. The same light, the same purity. Maybe that was why he felt so connected to the girl. The next morning, Michael cancelled all his company meetings and went straight to the square. Sarah was there, sitting on the same bench, playing with some twigs she had gathered. "You came back," she said, smiling. "I promised I would. How was your night?" "Quiet. I slept well," she lied, not wanting to worry him. Michael had spent the whole night thinking about the girl's situation. He brought with him a bag of snacks, water, and some children's clothes he had bought at a store on the way. "I brought you a few things." Sarah carefully opened the bag, and her eyes widened at the sight of the clean clothes, sandwiches, and cookies. "All this is for me?" "Yes. And there's a warm sweater in there too, so you won't get cold at night." The girl took the pink sweater and hugged it to her chest. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever had," she whispered, emotional. They spent the morning talking. Sarah shared more details about her life. She revealed that her mother, Linda, worked cleaning houses and had received an offer to work on a farm in rural Michigan. She said they paid better there, and once she saved enough money, she'd come get me, and we'd live in a little house of our own, Sarah said. But it's been longer than she said it would take. Do you remember when that was? Sarah thought for a moment. It was when it started getting colder. I remember because Mom was worried about me being cold. Michael figured that must have been at least 4 months ago. A long time for a child to be alone on the streets. Sarah, do you remember the name of the farm where your mom went to work? She said it was far from here, somewhere with lots of cattle and crops. But I don't remember the name. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to leave a like and especially to subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Over the following days, Michael established a routine. Every morning, after a quick stop at his company, he'd meet Sarah at the square. He brought food, clean clothes when needed, and most of all, companionship. The girl began to trust him more. She shared that sometimes bad people tried to hurt her, but she had learned to hide. She also revealed that Mrs. Wilson let her use the bakery's bathroom and sometimes helped her wash up. "Why are you so nice to me?" Sarah asked one Thursday afternoon. Michael thought about the question. The truth was, caring for her was filling a void in his heart he hadn't even known existed. "Because you remind me of someone very special," he answered honestly. "Your daughter?" "Yes." "What was she like?" Michael smiled at the memory. "She was as curious as you, always asking questions, always wanting to know how things worked. And she had a huge heart, always worried about others." "Would she have liked me?" "I'm sure she would. You two would be great friends." Sarah grew thoughtful. "You know what I want most in the world?" "What?" "To have a real family. A home where I could sleep without fear, with people who care about me." Michael's heart tightened. He had so much to give and no one to receive it. Sarah needed so much and had no one to help her. "Sarah, have you ever thought about—" he began, but was interrupted. Michael Thompson." He turned and saw Jennifer, his secretary, approaching the bench with a worried expression. "Jennifer, what are you doing here?" "Your brother is at the office looking for you. He said it's urgent. And—" she glanced at Sarah suspiciously. "Everyone's talking about how you've been spending your days in a square with some street kid." The way Jennifer said street kid made Michael bristle. "And what's the problem?" "Mr. Thompson, with all due respect, this could harm your image. The company is going through a delicate time and the shareholders—" "Jennifer, you can tell my brother I'll speak with him later. As for the shareholders, they can worry about their own problems." The secretary hesitated. "Sir, your brother was very insistent. He said if you don't go now, he'll come here himself." Michael sighed. His brother Richard never had patience for anything he considered a waste of time. And since Emily's passing, he'd been pushing Michael to move on and focus entirely on business again. "Sarah, I need to handle something at the office, but I'll be back soon, okay?" The girl nodded, but he caught a shadow of sadness in her eyes. "You promise you'll come back?" "I promise." At the office, Michael found Richard pacing his room, clearly agitated. "Finally," Richard exclaimed. "Where have you been?" "I stepped out for a few hours. What's the problem?" "The problem is, you've been disappearing from the office every day, cancelling important meetings, and now I find out you're wasting time with beggars on the street." Michael clenched his jaw at his brother's tone. "First, I own this company and can leave when I want. Second, I'm not wasting time with anyone. Michael, you need to stop this. I know losing Emily was hard, but you can't let it destroy everything we've built. It's not about that. No? Then explain why you're spending your time with some random street kid instead of handling business." Anger flared in Michael. "She's not just some kid. She has a name, feelings, a story. And what does that have to do with you? Michael, you have responsibilities. We have employees who depend on this company, million-dollar contracts in progress. And I'm not abandoning anything, I'm just helping someone in need." Richard stopped pacing and stared at his brother. "You're getting attached to that girl because she reminds you of Emily. That's not healthy, Michael." The words hit Michael hard because he knew there was truth in them, but did that make Sarah's struggles any less important? "Even if that's true, what's the problem? I'm helping a child who needs it. Where's the harm in that? The harm is you're fooling yourself. That girl isn't your daughter, Michael. Emily is gone and you need to accept that. Richard's words echoed through the room like a slap. Michael's legs felt weak. Get out of my office, he said quietly. Michael, get out. Richard sighed and headed for the door. When you decide to stop running from reality, let me know. Until then, I'll handle the business alone. After his brother left, Michael stood alone in his office, Richard's words ringing in his mind. Was he really fooling himself? Was his care for Sarah just a desperate attempt to replace Emily? But even if it was, did that matter? Sarah was alone, needing help, and he was in a position to help. Why did this have to be complicated? Michael returned to the square in the late afternoon. Sarah was on the bench, clutching a small, worn-out teddy bear he'd never seen before. Where did that teddy come from? He asked, sitting beside her. I found it in the trash last night. It was dirty, but I cleaned it at Mr. Johnson's faucet, so I thought it needed a family too. Michael smiled. Even with so little, Sarah had adopted an abandoned toy. What are you going to name it? Teddy, like the name I'd give a little brother if I had one. That's a good name. They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the square's activity. Michael, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you afraid of anything? The question caught him off guard. Why do you want to know? Because sometimes I see you sad, even when you're with me, and I wonder if you're afraid of something like I am. What are you afraid of, Sarah? That Mommy will never come back, that I'll be alone forever, and... She hesitated. That you'll stop coming to see me. Michael's heart tightened. I won't stop coming to see you, Sarah. Promise? I promise. What about you? What are you afraid of? Michael thought about the question. What was he afraid of? Of getting too attached to Sarah and then losing her too? Of never getting over Emily's loss? Of being alone forever? I'm afraid of losing the people who matter to me, he answered honestly. Sarah scooted closer to him on the bench. Then we can take care of each other, so neither of us has to be afraid. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Sarah's words echoed in his mind. We can take care of each other. It was so simple, so pure. Why did adults make things so complicated? The next morning, he arrived at the square earlier than usual. Sarah was awake, playing with Teddy. You're early today, she remarked. I missed you, he admitted. The smile she gave in return was worth more than any business profit he'd ever made. Sarah, can I ask you a serious question? She nodded, hugging the teddy. If I could find a safe place for you to stay where you'd have food, a warm bed, and people to take care of you while we wait for news about your mum, would you go? Sarah was thoughtful for a long time. Would it be far from here? Not necessarily. And if Mommy came back, would she know where to find me? I'd make sure of it. And would you still come to see me? Every day if you wanted. Sarah looked around the square, at the bench where she slept, the bakery where Mrs. Wilson helped her, the whole place that had become her home these past months. Can I think about it? Of course. You don't have to decide now. They spent the day talking about light-hearted things. Sarah told him about the cats that lived in the square and how she'd named each one. Michael shared stories of when Emily was little and realized talking about his daughter with Sarah was less painful than he'd imagined. At dusk, as Michael was getting ready to leave, Sarah called to him. Michael? Yes? About that place you mentioned, would it be in a real house? It would. With a bed just for me? With a bed just for you. And could I take Teddy? Michael smiled. Of course. Sarah was quiet for a moment, hugging the teddy. I'll go, but only if you promise you won't forget me. Sarah, how could I ever forget you? That night, Michael called his lawyer, Ms. Helen Carter, a capable woman who'd helped with various legal aspects of his business. Michael, what a surprise, how can I help? Helen, I need to know the procedures for helping a child in a vulnerable situation. There was a pause on the other end of the line. What kind of help are you thinking of? Michael explained Sarah's situation. careful not to give too many details that might identify her. I see. Well, there are several options. You could contact Child Protective Services and file a report about the child's situation. They would assess the case and take the necessary steps. And what would those steps be? It depends. They might place her in temporary foster care while trying to locate her family. Or if abandonment is proven, they could start the adoption process. What if I wanted to take temporary responsibility for her? Another pause. Michael, are you talking about temporary custody? That could be possible, but it would involve a series of legal procedures. Psychological evaluation, social worker visits, documentation. How long would it take? At least a few months, and you'd have to prove you're capable of caring for the child, both financially and emotionally. What if her mother showed up during the process? It would depend on the situation. If it was proven she abandoned her child, she could lose parental rights. But if it was a temporary work situation like you mentioned, she'd have the right to reclaim her child. Michael thanked them for the information and hung up. The situation was more complicated than he'd imagined, and he wasn't sure he was ready for all that legal process. The next day, he arrived at the square with a decision made. Sarah, I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday. Yeah? How about if for now I rent a small place for you nearby? A safe spot where you can sleep, with a bathroom and everything, and I'll come see you here at the square every day. Sarah's eyes lit up. Really? Really? That way you'll be safe, but you won't have to leave the square in case your mom comes back. Can Teddy come too? Of course. Sarah jumped off the bench and ran to hug Michael. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, Michael found a small studio apartment just 2 blocks from the square. The landlord, Mr. Anderson, a retired 65-year-old man, initially hesitated to rent for such an unusual situation. Look, doctor, I have nothing against the girl, but this is very strange. A wealthy man renting an apartment for a street kid. Mr. Anderson, I understand your concern, but I can assure you my intentions are good. The girl is alone and needs help. What about her family? Her mother is working out of town, temporarily. The landlord studied Michael's face, trying to decipher his true motives. Doctor, forgive me for asking, but why are you doing this? It's not normal for a businessman to get involved like this with a street child. Michael sighed. That question was being asked more and more often. Mr. Anderson, sometimes life puts us in situations where we can help someone in need. I'm in a position to help Sarah, so that's what I'm going to do. The landlord nodded slowly. All right, but I'll need references, documents, a cosigner. No problem. 2 weeks later, Michael took Sarah to see her new temporary home. It was a small but cozy space with a single bed, a tiny closet, a table, 2 chairs, and a small bathroom. Sarah stepped into the apartment as if she were entering a palace. Is all this mine? She asked, touching the bed reverently. It's all yours. And look. Michael opened the closet, which he'd filled with new clothes in her size. All these clothes are yours too. Sarah began to cry. Why are you doing this for me? Michael crouched down to her level. Because you deserve to have a safe place to sleep. Because you're a special and smart girl. And because taking care of you does me good too. Does you good how? You remind me that there are still good things in the world, that it's still worth caring about people. Sarah hugged him tightly. I love you, Michael. The girl's simple, sincere words touched a part of Michael's heart that had been asleep for months. I love you too, little one. In the days that followed, Michael's routine changed completely. He woke up early, stopped by Sarah's apartment to have breakfast with her, then took her to the square where they spent the day talking. In the evening, they returned to the apartment. He helped her with her bath and dinner, told her a story, and put her to bed. It was as if he had a daughter again. One afternoon, while Sarah played with Teddy in the square, Mrs. Wilson approached Michael. Can I talk to you for a minute? Of course, Mrs. Wilson. I've known Sarah for a few months, ever since she showed up here in the square, and I've never seen her as happy as she is now. I'm glad to hear that. You're a good person, But, she hesitated. People are talking. Talking about what? About you and Sarah. Some folks find it strange that a wealthy man would care so much about a street child. Michael felt irritation rise. And what do these people suggest I should do? Leave a 6-year-old child sleeping on the street? No, sir, I'm not criticizing. I'm just warning you that tongues are wagging, and in a small town like this part of Chicago, gossip spreads fast. Mrs. Wilson, I understand your concern, but I can't let people's malice stop me from helping a child in need. You're right. It's just, be careful, okay? Sometimes people make up ugly things about situations they don't understand. That conversation left Michael thoughtful. Could his help to Sarah be misinterpreted? Should he step back to protect both their reputations? But when he looked at Sarah playing happily in the square, he couldn't imagine abandoning her now. She was starting to trust him, to feel safe. How could he just disappear from her life? That night in the apartment, while Sarah was taking a bath, Michael got a call from Jennifer. Mr. Thompson, sorry to bother you after hours, but it's urgent. What is it? Your brother scheduled a meeting with the shareholders for tomorrow. He said he'll discuss changes in company management. Michael's blood ran cold. What kind of changes? I'm not entirely sure, sir, but from what I've heard, it seems he wants to propose that you step aside temporarily as president. He can't do that. I hold the majority of shares. Sir, I don't understand all the legal details, but from what I've heard, he's claiming you're not in the right psychological state to run the company. Michael hung up angrily. Richard was using his dedication to Sarah to try and take control of the company. Michael! Sarah appeared in her pajamas, holding Teddy. Are you mad? He forced a smile. No, little one. Just tired. Do you want me to tell you a story to help you sleep? Sarah's innocent question nearly brought him to tears. When was the last time someone had offered to take care of him? Yes, I'd like that. Sarah settled into bed and began telling a story she made up on the spot about a girl who lived in the clouds and a sad man who learned to fly to find her. It was a simple story, told with the pure imagination of a child, but it moved Michael deeply. The next morning, Michael left Sarah playing in the square under Mrs. Wilson's care and went to the company to face his brother. The meeting was already happening in the conference room. When Michael walked in, he found Richard at the head of the table, surrounded by the company's major shareholders. Finally, Richard said, I was starting to think you wouldn't show up. Can someone explain what's going on here? One of the shareholders, Dr. William Davis, stood up. Michael, we're concerned about the direction of the company. In recent weeks, you've been absent. Absent how? Canceling important meetings, avoiding strategic decisions, spending your days on personal matters. My personal matters don't interfere with my work. Richard stood up. Don't interfere? Michael, you're living in a fantasy, wasting time and money on some random child, as if she could replace Emily. The room fell completely silent. No one had spoken openly about Emily since the accident. How dare you mention her? Michael was trembling with anger. Someone has to say it. You're sick, Michael. You need professional help, not to play father to some street kid. Enough! Michael slammed his fist on the table. I won't allow anyone to speak about Sarah that way. Sarah? Dr. William looked surprised. You've already given her a name. She has a name. She's a person, not a charity project. The shareholders exchanged worried glances. The intensity of Michael's reaction confirmed their suspicions. Michael, Dr. William said in a conciliatory tone, no one is criticizing your generosity, but perhaps you should seek professional help to deal with your loss. I don't need professional help. I need you all to understand that I can run this company and still have a personal life. Richard shook his head. A personal life is one thing. Obsessing over an unknown child is another. I'm not obsessed with anyone. I'm just helping a girl in need. And why you, Michael? Another shareholder asked. Why not turn her over to the proper authorities? The question caught Michael off guard. Why him? Why hadn't he contacted Child Protective Services right away? Because she trusts me. Because I can help her in ways the system can't. Or because she reminds you of your daughter, Richard said quietly. The remark hit Michael like a punch to the gut. Everyone in the room fell silent, watching his reaction. "And if she does?" Michael asked, his voice choked. "What if caring for her brings me a little peace? What's wrong with that?" Dr. Williams sighed. "Michael, the problem is that it's not healthy, not for you or the child. You're building a relationship based on projection, not a real connection. You don't know Sarah, you don't know what she's been through, how special she is. And we don't need to know," Richard snapped. "This isn't our problem. Our problem is that the CEO of this company is spending more time with a stranger than with his own business." Michael looked around the table. Every face reflected the same concern, the same doubt about his mental state. "Fine," he said, standing up. "I'll make it easy for you. I want a 3-month leave from my position as CEO." "Michael," Dr. William tried to intervene. "3 months. Richard can take my place temporarily. That'll give me time to resolve Sarah's situation and prove to you all that I'm not crazy." Richard seemed surprised by how easily he'd won. "Are you sure about this?" "I am, but when I return, I want every one of you to admit you were wrong about me." Michael left the meeting with a mix of anger and relief. Anger at being questioned and judged, relief at being able to focus entirely on Sarah without having to answer to anyone. When he reached Liberty Square, he found Sarah sitting on the bench, looking sad. "What's wrong, kiddo?" "A strange woman came here asking about me." Michael's heart raced. "What kind of woman?" "She said she knew my mum, that my mum sent her to come get me." "And what did you say to her?" "That my mum doesn't know anyone here, and that if she wanted to take me, she'd come herself." "You did the right thing. What did this woman look like?" Sarah made a disgusted face. "She smelled bad, and her teeth were dirty, and she got mad when I said I wouldn't go with her." "Did she say anything else?" "She said she'd come back, and that if I was smart, I'd go with her next time." Michael felt a chill of fear. Who was this woman, and how did she know about Sarah? "Sarah, from today on, I don't want you staying alone in the square. If I have to go out, you stay in the apartment or with Mrs. Wilson at the bakery, okay?" "Okay, but why?" "For your safety. There are bad people who take advantage of children." That night, Michael barely slept. He was worried about the mysterious woman and also troubled by the shareholders' accusations. Was he really fooling himself about Sarah? Was he using the girl to fill the void left by Emily? The next morning, he decided to take action on something he'd been putting off for weeks. "Sarah, I need to ask you some questions about your mom." "What kind of questions?" "Do you remember her last name? Her full name?" Sarah thought for a moment. "Linda. Linda Smith. I think it's Smith." "And do you remember where you lived before coming to the square?" "We rented a tiny room in a house in the factory district. It was really small, but Mom always said one day we'd have a bigger house." "Do you remember the address?" "I don't know the number, but it was on a street with a big tree in front. Mom always told me to play under the tree because she could see me from the window." Michael decided to investigate. If he could find any trace of Linda and Sarah in the factory district, maybe he could figure out where Linda had gone. He spent the afternoon walking the streets of the factory district, looking for rental houses with big trees out front. At the 5th house he visited, he met Mrs. Henderson, a 70-year-old woman who rented out rooms. Linda Smith? She thought for a moment. Oh yes, the young woman who lived here with her little girl. Michael's heart raced. Do you remember them? Of course I do. Linda was a good tenant, always paid rent on time, no trouble, and the girl was such a sweet child. Do you know what happened to them? Mrs. Henderson frowned. They disappeared overnight. Linda owed 2 months' rent, which was strange because she always paid on time. One morning she left with her daughter and never came back. When was this? About 5 months ago. Did she leave anything behind? Almost everything. Clothes, some old furniture, a few photos. I still have it all stored in a shed, waiting for her to come back and get it. Could you show me those things? Mrs. Henderson looked at him suspiciously. Are you related to her? Michael hesitated. How could he explain his relationship with Sarah without sounding suspicious? I'm a friend. I'm trying to help locate her. Oh, so Sarah's okay. I was so worried about that girl. You know Sarah. Of course. She played in the backyard here every day. Such a lovely, well-behaved child. Linda raised her right. Mrs. Henderson took Michael to a small shed behind the house. Inside were some women's and children's clothes, a few household items, and a shoebox full of photos and documents. You can take the box, said Mrs. Henderson. If you find Linda, tell her I kept everything with care. Michael thanked her and took the box home. That night, after putting Sarah to bed, he opened the box and began examining its contents. The photos showed Linda, a young woman with a simple but kind appearance, always beside Sarah during various moments of the girl's childhood. There were also some documents, Sarah's birth certificate, Linda's work ID, and some old bills. In one of the photos, Michael noticed something that made him pause. Linda was wearing a cleaning company uniform, and the name printed on the pocket read, Total Clean General Services. The next day, Michael went looking for the company. The headquarters was in an industrial area of Chicago, in a simple but well-kept building. At the reception, a young woman greeted him. Good morning, how can I help you? I'd like to speak with someone from Human Resources. It's about a former employee. One moment, please. The receptionist made an internal call, and soon a middle-aged woman in a simple pantsuit appeared. Good afternoon. I'm Susan, the HR supervisor. I heard you're asking about a former employee? That's right, Linda Smith. She worked here until a few months ago. Susan checked a file. Linda Smith. Yes, I have her record here. May I ask what your interest is in this case? Once again, Michael found himself having to explain his connection to Sarah without sounding suspicious. I'm a family friend. Her daughter is in need of help, and I'm trying to locate Linda. Susan studied him carefully. I see. Well, I can tell you Linda was an exemplary employee. She worked with us for nearly 2 years. And why did she leave? Actually, she didn't leave. She just stopped showing up for work. That was about 5 months ago. She didn't give any explanation? None. One day she didn't come in and we never heard from her again. We even went to the address she had given, but the homeowner said she had vanished. That's strange. It's not normal for someone to just disappear like that. Susan nodded. That's exactly what we thought. Linda was very responsible, very dedicated to her work. And she always spoke so fondly of her daughter. It didn't make sense for her to abandon everything like that. Did you file a report? Contact the police? We tried, but since she wasn't a relative and had left home on her own, they couldn't do much. They said it was a case of voluntary disappearance. Michael left the company with more questions than answers. Linda's disappearance was starting to seem less voluntary than he had initially thought. That afternoon in the square, he talked to Sarah about what he had discovered. Sarah, do you remember if your mum seemed worried or afraid of something before she left? Sarah thought for a moment. She seemed nervous. She'd look out the window at night like she was waiting for someone. And once I heard her crying in the bathroom. Did she ever mention owing money to someone? Not that I remember, but... Sarah hesitated. But what? There was a man who sometimes came to our house. Mom always sent me to play in the backyard when he arrived, but I heard them arguing. Do you remember what he looked like? He was tall and kinda heavy, and he had a scar here. Sarah pointed to her forehead. Mom always got nervous when he showed up. Michael felt a chill. Linda's disappearance was starting to sound more sinister than a simple abandonment. Sarah, did your mom ever mention this man's name? Not that I remember, but he had a weird way of talking, like he was from another town. That night, Michael decided to tell Sarah about his investigation. Sweetheart, I need to tell you something. I'm trying to find out what happened to your mom. Sarah's eyes lit up. Did you find anything? I found some clues, but I still don't know where she is. Is she okay? Michael hesitated. How do you tell a 6-year-old that her mother might be in danger? I don't know, Sarah, but I'll keep looking. What if you can't find her? The question Michael feared most. I won't stop searching. But what if she never comes back? Will I be alone again? Michael knelt in front of her and held her tiny hands. Sarah, no matter what happens, You'll never be alone again, I promise. Do you really promise? I promise. Whatever happens, I'll take care of you. Sarah hugged him tightly. You're the best thing that's happened to me since Mommy left. The little girl's words touched Michael's heart deeply. In Sarah, he had found not just someone to help, but someone who had given new meaning to his life. The next day, Michael received an unexpected call. It was Mrs. Wilson. Mr. Thompson, sorry to bother you, but something strange happened here. What is it? That woman Sarah mentioned. She came back, and this time she wasn't alone. Michael's blood ran cold. What do you mean she wasn't alone? There was a man with her. Tall, kinda heavy, with a scar on his forehead. The description matched exactly what Sarah had said about the man who visited Linda. Did they say anything? They asked about Sarah, wanted to know where she was living now. I told them I didn't know anything. Did they believe you? I don't think so. The man gave me a real nasty look, said they'd find out one way or another. Mrs. Wilson, can you do something for me? If they come back, can you call me right away? Of course, Mr. Thompson, but I'm worried. Those folks don't seem like good people. Michael thanked her and hung up. His concern for Sarah had grown considerably. Who were these people? And what did they want with her? He decided it was time to seek professional help. He called Miss Helen Carter again. Helen, I need your help urgently. What happened? Michael told her about the mysterious woman and the man with the scar. Michael, this could be very serious. If these people are actively looking for the child, they might have some connection to the mother's disappearance. That's exactly what I'm thinking. You need to go to the police right away. What if they want to take Sarah to a shelter while they investigate? Michael, the child's safety is more important than anything. If she's in danger, I know. I'm just trying to think of the best way to protect her. The best way is by involving the proper authorities. This has gone beyond social help to a possible criminal case. That night, Michael talked to Sarah about being extra careful. Sarah, those people who came looking for you might return, so starting tomorrow, you can't leave the apartment alone. Not even to go to the square, only with me. And if someone knocks on the door when I'm not here, don't open it no matter what. Sarah looked scared. Are they bad people? I don't know, sweetheart, but I'd rather not take chances. Michael, do you think they know where my mom is? The question he didn't want to answer. It's possible. That's why I'm going to talk to some people who can help us find the truth. What kind of people? People who know how to handle situations like this. The next day, Michael went to the police station. He was assisted by Officer Mark Roberts, an experienced man in his 50s. So, Dr. Thompson, tell me the whole story from the beginning. Michael recounted everything, how he met Sarah, the details about Linda's disappearance, the appearance of the mysterious people. I see, the officer said after listening. It does sound like a case worth investigating, but I need to clarify a few things, of course. First, about your relationship with the child. Officially, what is your legal situation regarding her? I'm helping her temporarily. With no involvement from Child Protective Services or any competent authority, Michael felt the discomfort of the question. Yes. Dr. Thompson, understand that while your intentions are noble, this creates a legally complicated situation. The child is under your care without legal authorization. But she was abandoned on the street. I understand, and you did what you thought was best at the time, but now we need to formalize the situation. What does that mean? It means I'll have to contact Child Protective Services. They'll assess the child's situation and decide on the best course of action. What if they want to place her in a shelter? That's a possibility, but they may also authorize her to remain under your care, provided you commit to starting the proper legal process. Michael sighed. He knew this moment would come sooner or later. What about the people looking for her? We'll investigate, but for that, I need you to bring the child here to give a statement. She's only 6 years old. I understand. It will be handled with great care in the presence of a child psychologist. Michael returned home with a heavy heart. How could he explain to Sarah that she'd have to go to the police station? How could he tell her they might have to be separated temporarily? He found Sarah playing with Teddy in the apartment, completely unaware of the storm of complications swirling around her life. "Sarah, I need to talk to you about something important." She stopped playing and looked at him attentively. "Is it about Mommy?" "In part. Tomorrow we'll have to go somewhere to talk to some people who might help us find your mother." "What place?" "It's a place where people work to keep others safe." Sarah looked worried. "Are they going to take me away from you?" The question Michael feared most. "I don't know, sweetheart, but even if it happens temporarily, I'll do everything to keep us together. I don't want to be away from you." "I don't either. But sometimes we have to go through hard times to solve problems." That night, Sarah had nightmares. She woke up crying, calling for her mother and Michael. He comforted her but couldn't sleep well either. The next morning, they went to the police station. Sarah was visibly nervous, gripping Michael's hand tightly. The officer greeted them along with Dr. Amanda Peterson, a child psychologist, and Ms. Caroline from Child Protective Services. "Sarah," Dr. Peterson said softly, "we're going to talk a little about you and your family, okay?" Sarah nodded, but kept holding Michael's hand. "Can you tell me how you met Michael?" Sarah told her version of the story, how she was alone in the square, how Michael approached her, how he helped her. "And do you remember your mother?" the psychologist asked. "Of course I do." Sarah perked up. "She's the most beautiful mom in the world. She has brown hair and always smells like coconut shampoo." "Do you remember when she left?" Sarah's smile faded. "She said she was going to work on a farm far from here, that when she saved enough money, she'd come back for me. And since then you've been alone?" "Until I met Michael." The psychologist asked several more questions, always careful not to upset the child. Then she asked to speak with Sarah alone. Meanwhile, Michael stayed in the room with the officer and the social worker. "Dr. Thompson," Ms. Caroline said, "I need to be direct with you. Sarah's situation is quite complex." "Complex how?" "She's been without legal supervision for months. Technically, that's abandonment. But she's being cared for. By you, who have no legal authority to do so," the officer intervened. "The issue is that, regardless of good intentions, the child must be under the official protection of the state until her mother's situation is clarified. Does that mean you'll take her away from me?" "Not necessarily," said Ms. Caroline. "We can authorize her to remain in your care, but with official oversight. You'd have to formally take responsibility for her." "And what does that involve?" "A psychological evaluation of you, an inspection of your residence, proof of good character, adequate income." "How long does that take?" "At least a few weeks." "And in the meantime?" "Sarah can stay with you, but under supervision. We'll have to make regular visits, monitor her development, and ensure she's being well cared for." Michael felt relieved. At least they wouldn't separate him and Sarah immediately. When Dr. Amanda Peterson finished speaking with Sarah, everyone gathered again. "Sarah is a well-adjusted child, given the circumstances," the psychologist reported. "She shows deep affection for you, Mr. Thompson, and feels safe under your care." "And what about her mother?" asked the detective. "She clearly believes her mother will return. There are no signs of trauma related to conscious abandonment. To her, her mother is simply working away." "Is that good or bad?" asked Michael. "It's natural. Young children struggle to process permanent abandonment. Her mind is protecting itself." The detective turned to Sarah. "Sarah, I'm going to ask you a few questions about those adults who came looking for you, okay?" Sarah nodded. "Had you ever seen that woman before?" "No." "And the man with her?" Sarah thought for a moment. "He looked like the man who sometimes came to our house to talk to Mommy." "How so?" "He was tall and kinda heavy, and he had a mark on his forehead." "Do you remember him and your mother arguing?" "They talked loudly. Mommy always got upset after he left." "Sarah, do you have any idea what they talked about?" The girl shook her head. "Mommy always sent me away to play when he came over. After the testimony, the detective spoke privately with Michael. We'll investigate these people, but in the meantime, I suggest you both be very cautious. Cautious how? Avoid public places, don't go out alone, and stay in regular contact with me. Detective, do you really think Sarah is in danger? I can't say for sure yet, but the fact that these people are actively looking for her is concerning. And what about her mother? Will you investigate her disappearance too? Yes, but I should warn you, missing persons cases are always complicated, especially after so much time has passed. Michael and Sarah returned home with a mix of relief and unease. On one hand, Sarah could stay with him. On the other, the investigation into Linda and the mysterious strangers was just beginning. That afternoon, while Sarah napped, Michael got a call from his brother Richard. "Michael, we need to talk." "Now's not a good time, Richard. It's about the company. There's been some trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "The kind only you can fix. You need to come back. I told you I wasn't returning for 3 months. Circumstances have changed. There's a serious issue with the municipal construction contract. If we don't handle this fast, we could lose millions." Michael sighed. Over the past few days, he'd almost forgotten about the company. "Richard, I can't leave Sarah right now. Her situation is too complicated." "Michael, you need to understand. The company is your responsibility. You have employees depending on you. And Sarah depends on me too. Sarah isn't your daughter." The words cut like a knife. "Maybe not biologically, but nothing. You're confusing things. That girl has family. She has a mother. You can't just emotionally adopt her. Her mother disappeared, Richard. And there are dangerous people looking for Sarah. Then turn the case over to the authorities and go back to your real life." "This is my real life now." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Michael, you need professional help. It's clear you're not handling Emily's loss in a healthy way. Don't mix things up." "How can I not? You find an orphaned child and immediately cling to her as if she could replace your daughter." "Enough!" Michael shouted, waking Sarah. "Don't call me again saying these things." He angrily hung up the phone. Sarah appeared in the living room, rubbing her eyes. "Why were you shouting?" "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Just dealing with a work problem." "Are you mad at me?" Michael's heart tightened. "Of course not. I could never be mad at you." Sarah walked over and hugged him. "I love you, Michael." "I love you too, Sarah." And it was true. Michael had discovered it was possible to love again even after so much pain. Sarah had brought light back into his life. 2 days later, the detective called with news. "Dr. Thompson, we've uncovered some things about those people." "What did you find?" "The man with the scar is named Vincent Miller. He has a police record for loan sharking and extortion." Michael's heart raced. "And the woman?" "Apparently she's just an acquaintance of his, but the important thing is we managed to track Vincent's whereabouts around the time Linda went missing." "Where was he?" "Collecting debts in the area where Linda was working." It means there's a strong chance he's connected to her disappearance." Michael felt a mix of hope and fear. "Have you arrested him yet?" "Not yet, we're gathering evidence, but we want to use Sarah as a witness to officially identify him." "Will she have to see him in person?" "No. We'll start with a photo lineup. If she confirms it's the same person, then we'll request an in-person identification, but with all necessary protections." The next day, Michael took Sarah to do the photo identification. At the police station, the psychologist showed her several photos. "Sarah, can you look at these pictures and tell me if you recognize any of these people?" Sarah carefully examined each photo. When she reached Vincent's picture, her eyes widened. "That's him," she said, pointing. "That's the man who came to our house to talk to Mommy." The detective and the psychologist exchanged meaningful glances. "Are you sure, Sarah?" "Yes. He always made Mommy sad." "Very good, Sarah. You've helped us a lot." After Sarah left the room to play with some games the psychologist had brought, the detective spoke with Michael. "With her identification, we've secured an arrest warrant. We're arresting Vincent today." "What about Linda?" "We'll interrogate him. If he knows where she is, we'll find out. And if he doesn't talk?" "One step at a time. First, We'll arrest him and see what we can get." That night, Michael was too nervous to focus on anything. Sarah noticed his anxiety. "Are you worried?" "A little, but it's grown-up worries. You don't need to worry about it." "Is it about my mum?" Michael hesitated. Sarah was becoming sharper and more perceptive. "Partly, but we might have good news soon." "Do you think they'll find her?" "I'm hoping so." Sarah grew thoughtful for a few minutes. "Michael, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If Mummy comes back, will you stop taking care of me?" The question he feared most. "Sarah, if your mum comes back, she'll be the one to take care of you. That's how it should be." "But what about you? Will you be alone again?" The sensitivity of the question touched him deeply. "Don't worry about me, little one." "But I do worry. You were sad when you found me, and now you smile so much more." Michael knelt in front of her. "Sarah, meeting you was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Even if your mother comes back, you'll always have a special place in my heart. And you'll always have one in mine too. You're like a father to me." Sarah's words filled Michael's eyes with tears. He never expected to hear a child call him Dad again. "Thank you for letting me take care of you, Sarah. Thank you for finding me." The next morning, the detective called with urgent news. "Dr. Michael, we arrested Vincent last night." "Did he say anything?" "At first, he denied everything. But when we showed him we had Sarah's ID, he started cooperating." "What about Linda?" "He admitted he knows her. Said she owed him money." "What kind of debt?" "Apparently, Linda borrowed money to pay for some of Sarah's medical bills. She got sick months ago and needed treatment." Michael remembered the scar on Sarah's knee. "And he went to collect that debt?" "Yes." "Said he went to the farm where she was working." "What happened there?" "That's the tricky part. He said Linda couldn't pay, so they made a deal." "What kind of deal?" "He wouldn't give details, but he said Linda is alive and well." Michael felt relief mixed with unease. "Where is she?" "He said he'll take us to her, but only if we guarantee he won't be charged with kidnapping." "Kidnapping?" "Dr. Michael, according to him, Linda is working to pay off the debt, but it's very likely she's being held against her will." Michael's stomach twisted. "Is she in danger?" "We don't know yet. We'll negotiate with his lawyer and try to reach a deal that lets us find Linda." "How long will that take?" "A few days, a week at most." Michael hung up with a racing heart. Sarah might reunite with her mother soon. He should have been happy, but part of him feared what it would mean for the bond he'd built with her. At lunch, he told Sarah about the investigation. "Did they find Mommy?" she asked, her eyes shining with hope. "Not yet, but they found out where she might be." "When is she coming back?" "We don't know yet, sweetheart, but it could be soon." Sarah stayed quiet for a few minutes, pushing food around her plate. "Are you happy Mommy might come back?" "Of course I am. It's what you want most, isn't it?" "Yeah, but I'm scared too." "Scared of what?" "What if she doesn't recognize me? It's been so long." "Nonsense. A mother always knows her child." "What if she doesn't love me anymore? What if she thinks I did bad things while she was gone?" Michael moved closer. "Sarah, your mother loves you more than anything in the world. I'm sure of it. And she'll be so proud of how brave and strong you've been all this time." "You really think so?" "I know so." That night, Sarah struggled to sleep, anxious about possibly seeing her mother again. "Michael, can I sleep with you tonight?" "Of course, sweetheart." They lay in the double bed Michael had bought for the apartment. Sarah curled up beside him, holding Teddy. "Michael." "When Mommy comes back, will you still be my friend?" "Always, Sarah. Forever." "And will you visit us sometimes?" "If your mother allows it, of course." "She will. I'll tell her you're the nicest person in the world." Michael smiled in the dark. "Sleep now, little one. Tomorrow might be a big day." 3 days later, the detective called with the news Michael had been both hoping for and dreading. "Dr. Michael, we've located Linda." His heart raced. "Is she okay?" "She's alive and physically well. But The situation is complicated. Complicated how? She was on a farm in the Fairview area, working under conditions akin to slavery. Vincent and his accomplices kept her there against her will, saying she could only leave once she paid off her debt. What kind of work was she doing? Domestic work, taking care of the farmer's house, but without pay, just food and lodging that were deducted from the debt. Michael felt anger rising. And now, we've already rescued her. She's receiving psychological care and will give a statement. But most importantly, she's desperate to reunite with Sarah. When can she see her? Today, if you'd like. She's here at the station. Michael looked at Sarah, who was playing on the living room floor. Sarah, he called, his voice choked. I need to tell you something very important. She dropped her toys and ran to him. What is it? They found your mother. Sarah's little face lit up like the sun. Really, where is she? She's at a station nearby, waiting to see you. Sarah burst into tears of joy. Can I go now? Can I see her now? We can go right away. Sarah dashed to her room and came back holding Teddy. I'll show Teddy to Mommy, and I'll tell her how you took care of me. In the car on the way to the station, Sarah was beyond excited. How is she? Did she ask about me? Was she worried? She's okay, and of course she asked about you. She loves you so much. And will you talk to her? Will you tell her how you helped me? If she wants to talk to me, I'll tell her everything. When they arrived at the station, the officer greeted them at the entrance. Sarah, your mother is in a room inside. Do you want to go see her? Sarah nodded eagerly but suddenly stopped and looked at Michael. Will you come with me? If you want me to, I will. She grabbed his hand. I do. The officer led them to a cozy room where Linda Smith sat in an armchair, her hands trembling with nerves. When the door opened and she saw Sarah, she burst into tears. Sarah, she cried, standing and running to her daughter. Mommy! Sarah let go of Michael's hand and rushed into her mother's arms. Their reunion was heartwarming. They hugged and cried together for several minutes while Michael watched from a distance, his heart tight. My baby, my sweet baby, Linda repeated, covering Sarah in kisses. Mommy missed you so much, I couldn't stop thinking about you. I knew you'd come back, Mommy. I always knew. Forgive me, my love. Forgive me for taking so long. You don't have to apologize, Mommy. I understand you were working. Linda looked over her daughter's head and saw Michael standing by the door. Her eyes welled up again. Are you Michael? He stepped forward. Yes, I am. You must be Linda. Sarah's told me so much about you. Linda stood up, still holding Sarah, and reached out her hand to Michael. I don't have the words to thank you for what you've done for my daughter. No need to thank me. Sarah is a special girl. It was a joy to care for her. The officer told me everything. How you found her, how you took care of her, gave her a home, food, love. Any decent person would have done the same. Linda shook her head. No, Mr. Michael, not just anyone. You saved my daughter. Sarah slipped out of her mother's embrace and took Michael's hand. Mommy, Michael is the nicest man in the world. He gave me a home, new clothes, yummy food every day, and he never got mad at me, not once. Linda looked at Michael with eyes full of gratitude. How can I ever repay you for this? You don't have to repay me. Seeing you two together again is more than enough. Mom, Sarah tugged on Linda's blouse. Michael went looking for you. He even talked to the police. Linda looked at Michael in surprise. You went after me? Yes. Sarah was worried, and I thought I might be able to help somehow. But why? Why go through so much trouble for people you barely knew? Michael glanced at Sarah, who watched him with shining eyes. Because Sarah deserved to have her mother back, and because taking care of her taught me to be a better person. The next 3 weeks were a period of adjustment. Linda and Sarah stayed temporarily in an apartment Michael rented for them, while Linda recovered psychologically from the traumatic experience and searched for work. During that time, Michael visited them every day. Sarah insisted he join them for dinner, and little by little, Linda began sharing details of what she had endured. It was a nightmare, she confessed one night after Sarah had gone to bed. I truly believed I had to work to pay off the debt, but every month they came up with new expenses, new deductions. I realized I'd never get out of there. Why didn't you try to run away? I did a few times, but they always caught me and brought me back. And they kept saying if I ran, they'd come after Sarah. So you stayed to protect her? Exactly. I'd rather suffer alone than know they'd hurt my daughter. Michael understood the sacrifice Linda had made, a mother willing to do anything for her child. And now, what are your plans? First, find decent work. Then, rent a small place for Sarah and me. Rebuild our lives. I can help you find a job. I have plenty of connections. Linda hesitated. Mr. Thompson, you've already done so much for us. I can't accept more help. Why not? Because it's not right. You have your own life, your responsibilities. You can't keep looking after us forever. Michael understood her concern, but part of him didn't want to walk away from Sarah completely. Linda, can I be honest with you? Of course. Taking care of Sarah changed my life. I was very lost before I met her. And now I don't know how to go back to living without her in my daily routine. Linda looked at him with understanding. You've grown attached to her. Very much, maybe more than I should have. And she has to you too. She talks about you all the time. They sat in silence for a few minutes. Mr. Thompson, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you have family? Children? Michael sighed. I had a daughter, Emily. She passed away a few months ago. I'm sorry. I didn't know. It's all right. But do you see why caring for Sarah meant so much to me? I understand completely. And I also see that Sarah filled a void in your heart. That's exactly it. And now? Now you and Sarah will rebuild your lives as it should be. And I'll try to do the same. Linda grew thoughtful. Mr. Thompson, what if we kept being a family? The three of us? The question caught Michael off guard. What do you mean? Sarah loves you like a father. You love her like a daughter. And I'm endlessly grateful for everything you've done. Maybe we could form a different kind of family, but a real one. Michael's heart raced. Linda, are you serious? I am. Sarah needs a father figure, and you already are that to her. And well, it would be an honor to share raising my daughter with the man who saved her life. But you barely know me. I know enough. I know your kindness, your generosity, your love for Sarah. That matters more than anything. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. Linda's proposal echoed in his mind. Could they really form a family this way? Would it be right for Sarah to have two parental figures who weren't a traditional couple? The next day, he talked to Sarah about the matter. Sarah, can I ask you something? Of course. How would you feel if I kept being part of your life, like an adoptive father? Sarah's eyes lit up. Really? You want to be my dad? I really do, if you'll have me as your dad. Sarah jumped into his lap. Yes, I always wanted a dad, and you're the coolest person in the world. And your mum. How would you feel if the three of us were a family? It'd be perfect, Mom, you and me, the coolest family in the world. 2 weeks later, Michael, Linda, and Sarah stood in front of a simple but cozy house in a middle-class neighborhood in Chicago. Is this our new home? Sarah asked, amazed. It's our home, Michael confirmed. It has 3 bedrooms, one for your mom, one for you, and one for me. And a backyard for Teddy to play in. A whole backyard just for him. Sarah ran off to explore the house while Michael and Linda watched her joy. Mr. Thompson, Linda began. You can just call me Michael, we're family now. She smiled. Michael, thank you for giving me a second chance to be a mom, and for letting Sarah have the father she always wanted. Thank you for letting me be part of your lives. Mom, Michael, Sarah shouted from the backyard. Come see, there's a tree here that's perfect for a treehouse. Michael and Linda laughed and hurried to the backyard, where Sarah was already planning all the adventures they'd have there. That night, their first in the new house, Michael tucked Sarah into bed. Good night, Dad, she said naturally. Good night, sweetheart, he replied, his heart overflowing with love. In the hallway, he met Linda. How do you feel? She asked. Complete, he answered. For the first time in months, I feel complete, and I feel at home. For the first time in so long, I truly feel at home. 2 months later, Michael was back at the company, but with a completely new perspective. He had created a social institute in Emily's honor, dedicated to helping children in vulnerable situations. "How's the institute project going?" asked Richard, who had reconciled with his brother after meeting Sarah and understanding what she meant to Michael. "Really well. We've already helped 15 children find temporary or permanent families. And Sarah, how is she?" "Wonderful. She started at her new school, made friends, and loves family life." "And Linda?" "She's working in the Institute's administration. She has a special sensitivity for helping kids who've been through tough situations." "You've made an interesting family." "We've made a real family. Different from the traditional kind, but real." That afternoon, Michael left work early to pick Sarah up from school, something he made sure to do every day. "Dad!" She ran to him as soon as she left the classroom. "How was school today, Princess?" "Great. The teacher said I'll present a project about family on Friday." "What's your project about?" "About how families can be made in different ways. I'm going to tell our story." "Our story?" "How you found me crying in the cold at the square, how you took care of me, how you met Mom, how we became a family. The teacher said it's a really beautiful story." Michael smiled. "It really is a beautiful story." That night at dinner, Sarah made an important announcement. "Mom, Dad, I have something to tell you." "What is it, sweetheart?" Michael and Linda asked at the same time. "I was thinking, you two like each other, right?" Linda and Michael glanced at each other, slightly embarrassed. "Of course we like each other, Sarah," Linda said. "We're a family." "No, I mean like boyfriend and girlfriend, like in the movies." Michael nearly choked on his water. "Why are you asking that, Sarah?" "Because I saw you talking and laughing together, and you look at each other in a special way, and it would be nice if you were dating too." Linda turned red. "Sarah, things aren't that simple." "Why not?" the girl insisted. "You like each other. You take care of each other, you take care of me. It's just like a real family." That night after Sarah went to sleep, Michael and Linda talked in the garden. "She's not wrong, you know," said Michael. "About what?" "About us. About feelings." Linda looked at him. "Michael." "Linda, can I be honest? These past few months I haven't just grown attached to Sarah. I've grown attached to you too." "I know, and so have I. Would it be strange? A man who met your daughter before he met you? It would be strange if it hadn't happened exactly that way. Sarah brought us together." Michael moved closer to her. "And now? Now I think Sarah is right. We are a real family, in every way." Michael took Linda's hands. "Then let's make it official. Are you asking me to be your girlfriend?" "I'm asking you to marry me." Linda laughed, surprised. "Already, so soon?" "Linda, I spent months caring for your daughter as if she were mine. You trusted her with me when you barely knew me. We've already gotten through the hardest part of any relationship. We learned how to build a family together. And Sarah will be thrilled. What if it doesn't work out? It will. Because the foundation of our relationship isn't passion or impulse. It's genuine love and mutual care." Linda was silent for a few minutes. "All right," she finally said, "but on one condition." "What?" "Sarah has to approve." "She will." The next morning, during breakfast, Michael made the official proposal. "Sarah, can I ask you a very important question?" "Of course, Dad. Would you like your mum and me to get married?" Sarah nearly knocked over her glass of milk. "Really? You're getting married? If you approve." Sarah jumped from her chair and hugged them both at the same time. I approve, we're going to be a real family forever." 6 months later, in a simple ceremony in their backyard, Michael and Linda got married. Sarah was the flower girl, holding Teddy in her arms. During the vows, Michael looked at Linda and then at Sarah. "I promise to love and care for both of you forever. I promise to be the best husband and father I can be. And I promise never to forget that our family was born from a miracle. A brave little girl who wasn't afraid to ask a stranger if he also cried from the cold." Sarah clapped louder than all the guests. That night, after the celebration, the three of them sat on the park bench where it all began. The bench had been restored by the city, and now had a small plaque, Hope Bench, dedicated to all the children waiting for love. "Dad," Sarah said, "can I ask you something?" "Of course, sweetheart. Do you still cry from the cold sometimes?" Michael looked at Linda, then at Sarah, and smiled. "No, honey. I'll never cry from the cold again, because now I have you two to warm my heart. And I'll never be cold again either, because I have a family who loves me." Michael hugged the two women who had completely changed his life. At the company, the institute in honor of Emily was thriving. Dozens of children had been helped, families had been reunited, lives had been transformed. One Tuesday morning, Michael was in his office when Jennifer announced, "Mr. Thompson, there's a family here who'd like to speak with you." "About the institute?" "Yes. They want to thank you in person." "Send them in." A modest family entered, father, mother, and a boy about 8 years old. "Mr. Michael," the father said, "my name is Joseph Stevens. This is my wife Mary and my son Peter. Nice to meet you. How can I help you?" "Actually, we came to thank you. Peter had been homeless for almost a year when your institute helped reunite us as a family." Michael looked at the boy, who smiled shyly. "Peter, how are you feeling now?" "Really good, Uncle Michael. Now I have a real family, like the ones we see in movies." "And are you liking school?" "Yes. And guess what? I'm going to write an essay about you." "About me?" "Yeah, about how you help kids find their families. The teacher said it's really important to have good people in the world." After the family left, Michael sat alone in his office, reflecting on how his life had completely changed. A year ago, he was a lonely, desperate man crying on a park bench. Now he was a father, a husband, and was helping other families reunite. That afternoon, when he went to pick up Sarah from school, she ran to him with exciting news. "Daddy, guess what? My teacher chose my essay to represent the school in a contest." "What essay?" "The one about our family, about how you found me in the square and how we became a family." "And what was the title of the essay?" Sarah smiled proudly. "The Man Who Cried from the Cold and the Girl Who Taught Him to Love Again." Michael felt his eyes fill with tears. "That's a perfect title, sweetheart. And you know what? The teacher said our story will inspire other people to help kids who are alone." "I hope so, Sarah. I hope our story inspires many people to open their hearts to those who need love." That night at dinner, Linda made a special announcement. "Michael, Sarah, I have some news for you." "What news, Mom?" asked Sarah. "Well, you'll have to get used to one more member in the family." Michael and Sarah exchanged confused glances. "What do you mean?" Michael asked. Linda smiled and placed a hand on her belly. "I'm pregnant." Silence lingered for a few seconds before Sarah burst with joy. "I'm going to have a baby brother?" "Or a baby sister," Linda said, laughing. Sarah ran to hug her mother, then her father. "Now our family will really be complete." Michael embraced Linda emotionally. "Another miracle in our lives." "It really is. A family that started with a simple question from a child and now is growing by one more." "Mom, Dad," Sarah said, "can I choose the baby's name?" "Depends," Michael replied. "What name do you want? If it's a boy, Teddy, like my teddy bear. And if it's a girl, Hope." "Why Hope?" Linda asked. "Because it was hope that brought us together. I hoped Mom would come back, Dad hoped to be happy again, and Mom hoped to be free and find me. Hope made our family happen." Michael and Linda looked at each other, moved by their daughter's wisdom. "Hope is a beautiful name," Linda said. "And Teddy is great too," Michael agreed. 9 months later, in the same hospital where Sarah had been examined when Michael found her, Hope Thompson Smith was born, a healthy, beautiful baby who completed the family for good. Sarah became the most devoted big sister, always helping care for the baby and telling her the story of how their family came to be. One Sunday morning, 2 years after Hope's birth, the family gathered in the square where it all began. Now there was a small playground funded by Michael's Institute, and many families brought their children to play there. Sarah, now 9, pushed Hope on the swing, while Michael and Linda watched from a nearby bench. "Do you regret anything?" Linda asked. "What?" "Stopping in this square that day, crying in front of a child you didn't know." Michael thought about the question. "Never. That was the most important moment of my life. That was when I stopped merely existing and truly started living again. And I thank God every day that you were exactly the person you were in that moment, someone willing to help a stranger's child." "Daddy! Mommy!" Sarah ran to them. "Hope said Sarah. She said my name." "Are you sure?" asked Linda. "Yes." She looked right into my eyes and said, "Sarah. She recognizes me." Michael picked up Hope. The 1.5-year-old baby smiled at him and babbled something that really did sound like Daddy. "I think she's really trying to talk," he said. "Of course she is," said Sarah. "She wants to be part of our conversations. She wants to tell everyone how special our family is." That afternoon, as they walked home, Sarah made an observation that touched Michael deeply. "Daddy, you know what? What is it, sweetheart? I think Emily would be happy to know you found a new family to love." Michael stopped walking for a moment, surprised by the mention of Emily. Sarah rarely spoke about the daughter he had lost. "Why do you think that, Sarah?" "Because when you truly love someone, you want them to be happy. And you're happy with us, right?" "Very happy." "Then Emily must be happy too, wherever she is." Michael knelt on the sidewalk and hugged Sarah. "Thank you for saying that, honey. Thank you for understanding." "You're welcome, Daddy. That's how real families work. We take care of each other's feelings." That night, Michael wrote in his personal journal, a practice he'd adopted since finding Sarah. "Today marks exactly 3 years since I met Sarah. 3 years since she asked me if I also cried from the cold. Back then, I really did cry from the cold, a cold that came from within, from an empty soul, from a broken heart. Today, I look at my family. Linda pregnant again. Yes, we're having another baby. Sarah growing into an amazing girl. Hope taking her first steps. And I realize I haven't felt cold since. The Institute has helped over 200 children. The business is thriving. But more important than any of that, I've learned that love has no limits, that families can form in the most unexpected ways, and that sometimes the simplest questions can change an entire life. Sarah asked me if I cried from the cold. The answer today is no. I'll never cry from the cold again because I have the warmth of a real family to keep me warm, and with every child we help through the Institute, I remember that somewhere out there might be another Michael, lost and desperate, waiting for a little Sarah to appear in his life and show him that love and kindness are still worth believing in. 5 years later, Michael stood at Sarah's elementary school graduation. She had been chosen as the class speaker, and her speech moved the entire audience. "When I was little," Sarah said into the microphone, "I lived in a square, waiting for my mother to come back. I was alone and scared. One day, I found a man crying on the bench in the square. I asked if he also cried from the cold, and he said no. But I knew he did cry from the cold, from the kind of cold that comes from within when you feel alone in the world. That man was my father, Michael. And that day, we both stopped feeling cold. Because we discovered that family isn't just who you're born with. Family is who chooses to stay together, to care together, to love together. Today, our family has 5 members: Daddy Michael, Mommy Linda, me, my sister Hope, and my brother Gabriel. And through the Institute my father created, our big family has hundreds of children who also stopped feeling cold. My message to you is, never be afraid to reach out to someone in need. Never be afraid to extend a hand to someone who's alone. Because sometimes a simple question can change 2 lives at once. And if one day you find someone crying in a square, stop and ask, are you crying from the cold too? Maybe that's the question that was missing to form a new family. The end of the story. Now tell us what you thought of this touching story. Where are you watching from? Do you believe love can truly create unexpected families like Michael and Sarah's? Leave your honest comments. We love reading your opinions. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.